So I have a side-by-side image here of both systems playing Star Fox because it has the FX chip. I was curious if it worked, and it did work. And as far as I know, I think most Super Nintendo games will work for either both systems. I'm unaware of any games that don't work on either of these systems. But as you can see here with the image quality, the Supa Boy, the picture is a lot more clear. The colors are brighter. The FC16 Go, however, is a little bit more faded, a little bit more grainy. It's not terrible. But it's a little bit bigger also compared to the Supa Boy. So the Supa Boy has a little bit smaller screen. Even though both claim to have a 3.5-inch screen, the Supa Boy doesn't take up the whole screen as FC16 Go does. Let's listen in on some of the sound. Let's hear this is going to be a sample of FC16 Go playing Star Fox. Now let's listen in on the Supa Boy. Keep in mind both of these systems are at full volume when I play these sound samples. And from listening to both systems now, the Supa Boy appears to be a lot more quiet. Even though it's at both are at full strength, it's a lot more quiet than the FC16 Go. Okay, so before I show you how this works on TV using a normal Super Nintendo controller, let me show you how this works with Super Famicom games. And also, I noticed a few design things that kind of irritated me a little bit, where the start and select, they're reversed. So even though they're located up top here, that's not a big deal, but start is on the left, select is on the right. So I'm used to having start on the right. That's pretty minor, but this is kind of a big thing. This is like a AC adapter plugs in here. I wish that was on the bottom, because when you're plugging in games, I've noticed it kind of gets in the way sometimes. Just little things like that kind of irk me a little bit, but nothing too major. Let's plug this Super Donkey Kong in. This is Donkey Kong Country in the States. Let's see if this works. And there we go. It's working. I love this game. It's fantastic. So that's cool, that works. Another thing is, I didn't ever notice, I still don't know what this slide thing does. I think it's to maybe eject. I was thinking maybe it's to eject your cartridges, but sliding when a cartridge is in there, it doesn't slide. Kind of weird thing is this handheld doesn't come with any instruction manuals. All the instruction manuals are on the back of the box. Now let me show you how this works on a TV. Unfortunately, with the FC16 Go, the AV out, the adapter, the cord, I misplaced it. It's somewhere in my game room. I'm not quite sure, and that only works with that handheld, unfortunately. So they're not cross-compatible, unfortunately, which is a bummer. So I'm not able to show you that, although I've done a review on that system before, and I've done some gameplay through TV before a number of times, and I can tell you it works fairly well. And the wireless remotes actually are fairly responsive, surprisingly. It works well. But as I said before, with the FC16 Go, you're not able to use any other accessory for that if it plugs into the system. In this case, you can. So let's take a closer look at how this plugs into the TV. So I'm actually playing a game, F-Zero, through the Game Genie for the Super Nintendo to see if it actually works. And it appears that the Game Genie is compatible with the Supa Boy, which is really cool. I just was curious if that worked. A couple things I noticed right off the bat, though, is that you have to use a controller when it's plugged in the TV. You cannot use the handheld itself, which is kind of interesting. You think you could just use the handheld itself as a controller. It doesn't work when it's plugged into the TV. The buttons are unresponsive. That's interesting. Another thing I noticed is the screen itself actually stays on. The screen on the handheld actually stays on when you're playing through TV. So it uses a lot more power that way, which is unfortunate. Where the FC16 Go, you have the ability to turn the screen off to conserve power. That's not an option for the Supa Boy. So two things right off the bat I just want to let you guys know. Let's just push start and bypass all that. See how this works. I'm using a standard Super Nintendo controller through the system, and it works perfect. So F-Zero is one of my favorite games for the system, so it's classic. It looks normal. It sounds pretty good. It sounds a lot better through the TV than it does on the handheld itself. Yeah, this is classic. A must-have for the system, in my opinion. Okay, in summary, I'm going to go over the pros and cons for each handheld, and I'll give you my personal recommendation if you were to decide between either of these handhelds. I'll start with the FC16 Go, since that was the first to the market. I'll start with the pros. It's less expensive than the Supa Boy, probably by about $5 to $10 or more, depending on where you purchase it, so that's a pro. A second pro is that actually the sound on the handheld itself is a lot more loud. It's a lot more crisp and clear than the Supa Boy. Even though the Supa Boy doesn't have terrible sound, it's just not necessarily as loud or clear, okay? Those are the two pros I can think of for the FC16 Go. Pros for the Supa Boy. Huge pro itself is I love the fact that it plays Super Famicom games. It opens up a huge library of games that are unavailable to the library of Super Nintendo games. That's a huge plus. I like the feel of the Supa Boy over the FC16 Go. It feels more like a controller for Super Nintendo. It looks more like something that Nintendo would actually produce and bring to the market. It looks authentic. It's pretty cool. I like the packaging overall. The screen, I know it was kind of hard to the camera to see it, but the screen itself was a lot more clear. It was, granted, it was a little bit smaller, even though both of them are 3.5-inch screens per se. The screen itself appeared a little bit smaller on the Supa Boy, though the resolution was a lot more bright. And it's something, I guess it's something I had to kind of see in real life. So the screen itself, the image quality picture of the image is better than the FC16 Go. So that's a pro there. As far as the cons go for the FC16 Go, the cons are it doesn't play any Super Famicom games. You can't use any Nintendo accessories for it. You can only use the wireless controllers that come with it. That's a huge con. That's a huge knock on the system. And as far as the cons for the Supa Boy go, I don't like the layout of some of the buttons. As far as I'm concerned, I don't like the AC adapter where that's in. I think it's kind of weird that you can't use the handheld itself as a controller when it's plugged into the TV. You have to use actually another controller, which is kind of a pain, in my personal opinion. But overall, I think if I were to recommend one of these systems, I would definitely go with the Supa Boy. It's only $74.99, which I think is decently priced over at StoneAgeGamer.com. It's usually retailing for $79.99, which I still think is a pretty good deal for this. And a lot of people ask, why would I want to get a handheld that plays Super Nintendo games or Super Famicom games if I have like a place PSP or another device that plays emulators? And my response to that is very simple. For me personally, as a gamer and as a collector, I really enjoy playing the real games themselves. I like going out in the hunt and finding the actual cartridges. I think that's a lot more fun than just downloading a ROM and putting on to a handheld. And just it's more authentic to me. That's just me personally, so I prefer to do that. And it feels like playing the real thing compared to playing on another device. It sounds weird, but that's just my personal opinion. So that is my overall review over both the FC16 Go and the Supa Boy. I appreciate you guys watching. Thanks for subscribing, and I'll see you soon. Take care.